Hello. In this video I'm going to explain how to run your own SPBM reports to select benchmarking information from the database to compare your own organisation against a peer group of similar other organisations. So this is the main SPBM menu. I'm interested in the reports options, third option along. To create a report, I select reports. Now this is the report selection form. There's a three-step process to defining what data you want to include in the report. Step 1, selecting the period that you're interested in. Step 2, select a peer group to compare yourself against. And step 3, select the performance indicators that you're interested in. So we'll click on select reporting period in the first panel. Brings up a list of all of the periods available. I'm going to select 2014-15. Save it. Go back to the reports page. So now my first panel here, it says currently selected 2014-15. Secondly, I need a peer group of organisations to compare myself against. So I click on select peer group. There's various different ways you can choose organisations for your report. This top left panel, filter by club, regional, size. You can use these filters. At the moment, everything is selected, the national, small or HA club. But I can click on that filter. I can narrow it down, say to BM320, which is one of the London clubs. It happens to be the club that my organisation is in. On the right hand side here, it's given me a list of the organisations selected, and I can see that demonstration HA is in there. Other filters that I could use, I could filter down by region, and I could filter by minimum and maximum properties, so I could narrow it down based on the size of the organisations. So that's my basic peer group. I've got 17 organisations in there. It is the benchmarking club that I've put Demonstration Housing Association into, so it should be a fairly good group to compare myself with. I've got some other options to include comparative data from SPBM nationally, and I'm going to tick that. That's the second box down. I can also include housemark data. I'm going to tick that as well. And I've got a third option to include data from any region using a list, and because this organisation theoretically is in London, I'm going to select London. So I've got three other comparators in addition to my peer group of 17 that I've chosen. So finally, if you really want to narrow down the group that you're comparing with, this option on the bottom left, select by HA profile. I'm going to click on that, and that gives me a table. It shows the organisations that I've already selected. So it's a table of my 17 that I've narrowed down to, with a tick box next to each one. So I can actually go down this list and tick the ones that I want to include or exclude from my report. And to choose which ones to include, I've got all of the profile information that SPBM holds. So going across from left to right, I can see general needs properties, supported properties, housing for older people properties, etc. I can see the turnover, the rent, whether they provide support and care, numbers of staff, etc. In fact, you can scroll across this list further to the right. It shows you repairs targets and so on. So you can use this information to really narrow it down to an organisations which are a similar size to you, have got similar tenure types to you. And along the top of this table, against each heading, there's another set of checkboxes, because you can actually include this data in your report as well. So just to show how that works, I'm just going to tick a couple of these boxes. So I'm going to include the number of general needs properties, and I'm going to include the number of full-time equivalent staff, just for the purposes of demoing it. So having made your selection here, I'm going to go back to the previous selection by filter, just to show you've still got my 17 selected. I've got my extra quartile data selected here. Worth noting, if you use the select by HA profile table to go and pick off an individual list of associations that you want to include in your report, once you've done that, you can't use the filters anymore because you've selected an individual list. So you'd have to clear and refresh and start again if you wanted to do that. Anyway, I'm going to save this selection and go back to my reports page. So now in my second panel, it tells me I've got 17 subscribers selected. So finally, step 3, I'm going to select some performance indicators. This is a list of all of the performance indicators that I use. It doesn't show everything in the database, so it'll only be the ones that appear on your data entry form. And you can go down, you can check all of them if you want, or uncheck all of them. You can go down and tick these boxes. So you can also tick the titles if that's easier. So we're going to have average relet time for general needs void losses, average weekly costs on management, current arrears, and rent collection. Just select a few for the example. Save that, back to the reports page. So now steps 1 to 3, I've got selections made and I'm ready to run the report. Obviously this can be quite a time-consuming process to identify a peer group that you're particularly interested in. So what you can do is use the Save Report option, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to save this as Test Report January 2016. And that means that when I log off, I'll be able to come back in, retrieve this report from my list of saved reports, and I won't have to go through that selection process again every time. As far as running the report goes, I've got 2 choices. The first is the classic report, so called because it's the first report that we developed, and it gives you a table for each of the PIs that you've selected, showing your peer group and the data for each quarter in the year. So that's my first option. You can run it as Excel, this one, or you can show it as a web page. I'd always recommend people running it as Excel. So click on Run Classic Report. What happens next will depend on the browser that you're using. This is Chrome, so I've downloaded my Excel report. I've got a little icon here, and if I click on that, it's going to open up Excel. It gives me a warning, and sometimes you'll get these warnings about the file extension, or you'll get a warning telling you that to be careful of the file because it's come from the internet. But basically, you can click on yes to say you want to open it anyway. And here it is. It's my table of data. I'm just going to select this top one. So this is the first PI, percentage of rent lost due to dwellings being vacant. Just take you through the columns in the left-hand side, the short name for each of the organisations in our selected list. Also, we've got a median, we've got the London median, we've got the SPBM national median, and we've got the Housemark median. The next column shows us the long names for each organisation. The reason we've got a long name and a short name is because if you're using this data to drive charts, sometimes the long names can be a bit cumbersome, so it's nice to have short ones. The third column is the number of general needs properties that each of these organisations has. The fourth column is the number of full-time equivalent staff. These are just background contextual bits of data that we pulled out when we were making our selection. And then finally, the data for Q1 through to Q4 for the year we selected. And if we'd selected more than 1 year, those years would be going across right to left. So if you wanted to track trends, that can be quite useful. Scrolling down, you can just see we've got a similar table for each of the PIs that we selected, and they're grouped together into the domains. We ran PIs from income management and allocations and lettings. That was the two domains. At the top there's a date stamp and it says the report was generated by me and the date. I'm going to close that down now. Back to the report selection page, and I'm going to run the same selection of data as the VFM report. And the VFM report was devised to provide a single sheet snapshot overview of the data. It runs as Excel, so I click to run it again. Get the Excel icon at the bottom of my screen, the warning, and then here it comes. So this is the same information that we saw in the other report, but it's in a much smaller format. I'm just going to firstly reduce that down so you can see the whole thing. We've got our list of 5 performance indicators that we selected on the left hand side. The peer group of organisations goes from left to right across, and our organisation, which is Demo, is highlighted in yellow, so we stand out. After that, on the right, it shows us the quartile data for each of our comparative groups. So we've got lower quartile, median and upper quartile for each of the selections that we made. The first set of quartiles are for the peer group, so that's the 17 organisations that we selected. The second is the regional lower quartile, median and upper quartile. Next one is the SPBM, lower, median and upper quartiles. And then finally, we've got the Housemark, lower, medium and upper quartiles. And the colour coding indicates where we sit compared with each of those quartiles. So you've probably in this example got more data than you would include in a real report. You may not pick a peer group, you could just compare your organisation against the region in the national picture and Housemark. It's up to you, but I just included everything so that you can see it all. Little colour coding here shows us, so for that PI, we're in the 4th quartile compared with the peer group. In fact, we're in the 4th quartile compared with all of the peer groups that we've selected. For the next PI, and this data doesn't matter because it's just demo data that I put in for a non-existent association, we're in the 2nd quartile against our peer group. We're in the second quartile against our region. We're in the 2nd quartile nationally compared with smaller associations, but when we're compared with the Housemark data, we're in the top quartile. So it's sometimes interesting to look at differences how you compare differently with different peer groups that you've selected. I'm going to close that one down. So that's the two output formats that you can choose. One thing to be aware of, if you're running the VFM report, it is a single year dashboard snapshot, so you can't select more than one reporting period if you're running the VFM report. It's going to go back to the main menu to show you if you were coming in fresh and you wanted to look at your report, you can go to the reports library. That shows you two lists of reports. In the top one, your reports, report name test report January 2016, that's the one we've just created. I can share it with other people. It's automatically shared with anyone else who works in the same organisation that I work for. I can delete it, or I can view the details. In the second panel, there's some other reports. Now these are reports which have been created by other people who've shared. There's a report here that was created by the administrator, and there's a report here that was created by someone else. You can't delete reports that have been created by other people. You can only delete reports that have been created yourself. You can't edit reports that have been created by other people, but you can save your own version of them. But I'm just going to click on View Details. And now I've come into the main report screen, and all of the selections that I made before and that I saved before have automatically been pre-populated. So if I've got nothing to change, I don't want to tweak the peer group or the year or anything, I can just load the report like that, click on Run Report, and it brings up my VFM report like that. And there we are. So that's it. There is help available online. I'm going to refresh this page to set up a new report. It will show you that there's quite a comprehensive help page which goes into a bit more detail on the selections that you might make when you're running reports. Go back to the main menu, and then to log off, just go to my name and select log out. Thanks very much.